Thank you for joining me on the last segment of today's show to continue our series of the biggest remaining questions for each division, going through each team and answering some of the biggest questions that I see still left to be answered for each roster. We're in the NFC West on today's show, so without further ado, we're just going to get right into it, talking about those questions and how the Cardinals, to start off, will try to figure out a way to answer this question that I have posed for them. Will the running game still be this offense's identity heading into 2024? Because if you look at this Cardinals roster, they had the fourth ranked running game in the NFL last year, averaging 139 yards per game, which is a pretty quiet 139 yards because when you're the fourth best rushing team, to me that screams, but just suggests that your offense is doing pretty well and is probably what is getting you over the line in a lot of these games. But the Cardinals' record and just who they were, the talent level on their roster, didn't really suggest that. They weren't really a contender or really in the conversation whatsoever. So for them to have that aspect of their running game, or just their offense, I should say, be so prolific, I think stands out to me. And right away, that answers my question. But it answers half of it, actually, I should say, because will it still continue to be this offense's identity going forward? Because now you get Marvin Harrison Jr. in here, and right away, people think that, I think in a lot of people's minds, he's going to change this situation 180 degrees, and they're going to be this prolific, duo with Kyler Murray also coming back and having a full offseason under their new offensive coordinator, that now this new combination of Kyler and Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be game-changing for the Cardinals, which it could be to some aspect, but I don't think in any situation, in any rebuilding situation like the Cardinals still find themselves in, that just bringing in one generational type of receiver with a very talented quarterback is just going to flip things like that right away. And that's where the full completion of this answer comes in the form of the Arizona Cardinals, is that I believe that the running game will still have to be this offense's identity, at least for now, until they find some more options for Kyler Murray outside of Marvin Harrison Jr. Because once the season starts, teams are not going to, at least I don't think they're going to double Marvin Harrison Jr. right off the bat. I mean, they could, but being a rookie, being new to this whole NFL thing, even though his dad played in the NFL, I still think teams are going to treat him like a rookie, and until they prove that they need to double team him, they're not going to send extra help his way. So once that does become the case, because I think Marvin Harrison is that special, then you don't have really too many other options to go to, and I don't think the passing game can be this team's identity just yet, even though Kyler Murray, I think, is still very talented, very good quarterback for the Cardinals. He just suffered with injuries last season, and really the supporting cast hasn't been good at all in any real period for Kyler Murray. So to me, that has been a big point to all of this and the success of the Cardinals so far. But now, with a good running game, bringing in also Trey Benson from Florida State and Michael Carter over from the New York Jets, yeah, they're not game-changing names just yet, but pairing them with James Conner, who is coming off of the best season of his career, spotting him here or there with two other running backs, I think would just make this running game a little bit better. And then once you have that connection with Marvin Harrison, Kyler Murray, you can sort of start to feel that he is back to 100%. Then the passing game will be a very good complement to this running game, again, until they find some more weapons for Kyler Murray to throw the ball to outside of Marvin Harrison Jr. But this is a good step. This is a very good step for the Cardinals, who haven't had this much, I want to say, potential on the offensive side of the ball in a while. So they are moving in the right direction. I'm a big fan of Jonathan Gannon and the work that he's done. So good for the Cardinals. They've built the foundation, but they're not close to building the whole house yet, obviously. So next team I want to get to is the Seattle Seahawks. The main question around the main guy, the main position on any team, Geno Smith, the quarterback position. Is Geno Smith going to be the starter past 2024 this coming year? Because if you look at the Seattle Seahawks, they brought in Geno Smith during 2020, and 2023 is his fourth season. It was his fourth season, and he only began to be the starter in 2022. And once he was a starter in 2022 and in 2023, He had consecutive seasons of being 9-8, which I think just sums up what the Seahawks have been with Geno so far. He played pretty well in 2022. He earned himself a contract, and I do mean that he earned himself that contract just because of how well he played. He was one of the better quarterbacks in the NFC during that year, or during that run that he put together some very good performances. They made the playoffs. They lost in the wild card round, but I think it was a pleasant surprise for a Seattle Seahawks team that nobody would have ever guessed they were going to be in the playoffs with Geno Smith and the baggage that came with him when he got to the Seahawks. So he did earn that then, but to follow it up with another 9-8 season, and he didn't play as well as he did in 2022, then you get a whole different, vibe coming in here for the Seahawks with a new head coach. What are Mike Macdonald's ideas now? Is he going to continue to have Geno Smith in there as the starting quarterback? Because money talks. A lot of the times it makes the decisions for these teams. And Geno Smith now heading into an age where he's going to be 34 years old in 2025 as part of that extension that he got in 2022, or after that year, I should say, the cap hit that he is going to take up in 2025 after this year is going to be $38.5 million, which almost takes up about 15% of their entire salary cap. So, not to say that Geno, it's already written in the stars that he shouldn't be the guy going forward, but it adds more incentive, more pressure on this year for Geno to go out there and prove it to Mike Macdonald that, yeah, I take up a lot of the salary cap, but watch what I do in the regular season, watch how I produce those 2022 numbers, and kind of show Mike Macdonald, that he should be the starter going forward. Because right now the Seahawks aren't really in a spot to try and go out and find a quarterback just yet. I still think they have other roster holes that they need to figure out before they get another quarterback, and Geno to kind of be this pre-bridge quarterback for right now, I think is a good situation to be in. But because that cap hit is so significant in next year, I'm sure the Seahawks will be more than okay with freeing up that cap space, bringing in great players to fill that cap space, and just have Sam Howell as a bridge quarterback if that does become the case. So Geno has more pressure on him this year to kind of prove it to the Seattle Seahawks again that he can be the starter. He's had a good season, a bad season, and now it really comes down to this for Geno, which ultimately could be his last stop in the NFL, because if it does go wrong, I don't see too many other teams knocking at his door to be the starting quarterback. So there is a lot on the line here for Geno in 2024. Hopefully he can figure it out and provide some positive news for the Seahawks in Mike Macdonald's first year. Keeping it obviously in the division, talking about the Los Angeles Rams now, their answer, or their question, should be, can the Rams defense continue to improve? Just nice and simple, a basic question, because the Rams will try to see another step forward in 2024, because last season was the last year for Aaron Donald, and they had a young defense going in. A lot of people didn't know how this defense was going to hold up, quite simply because Aaron Donald seemed to be like the only guy that they had. But they were pleasantly surprised by their young breakout stars like linebacker Byron Young, the defensive tackle Kobe Turner as well, stepping up last year and showing a lot of people that they can be immediate contributors just as rookies in 2023. And of course, Aaron Donald retires this offseason. So now those guys at such a young age are looked upon as already the cornerstones of this defense. And are they able to lead this new young group with a lot of new guys also coming in like Braden Fisk, Jared Verse, Tre'Davious White, Darius Williams, Cameron Curl. A couple guys new to the NFL just in general, but three of those guys are new to this team, and Kobe Turner, Byron Young are still pretty new, still pretty green in that aspect, but they're now looked upon as the leaders, and are they able to lead this group into improving yet again in 2024, because they are definitely talented. I love all these guys that they brought in. I think they were definitely needed on that side of the ball, but it's how everybody comes together, that cohesion that you have as a group, and are they able to do it because they are very young, as I mentioned, in terms of who the leaders are on that side of the ball. So their offense is pretty, I would say a lot of people are excited for it this upcoming year, because You had a breakout star in Puka. Obviously, you have Cooper Kupp coming back. Matthew Stafford still your quarterback. Kyron Williams, Blake Corum. The offensive line got very much improved. So the offense looks pretty solidified. Now, if this defense can, provide some pivotal stops and be a top 15 defense, at least top 12 or something like that, then this Rams team can certainly make some noise in the division, but also in the conference. They were in the playoffs last year. They're looking to build off of that, and I think the defense, depending on which way it goes, is going to be a big deciding factor in whether or not the Rams can build upon last year. A very impressive last year, I should say, on top of that. But the last team, obviously, the main one in this division, the one that has just run this entire division, just the entire conference really, is the San Francisco 49ers. Can they continue to dominate and win some of these games the way that they have been doing over the last few years of their dominant run? Because when you get to this level, you saw with the Chiefs last year as well. They might have been winning games, but they weren't playing great. And right away, when people see the little crack in this juggernaut, this, team that has been running the conference overall, once they see that crack in their armor a little bit, they have to point it out. It makes news everywhere that this Chiefs team, this 49ers team, isn't the way that it used to be, and that there's no chance that they're going to ever make it back to the playoffs. They're not the same team. They're not going to win the Super Bowl. And the Chiefs, different level, proved everybody wrong, made it to the Super Bowl, won back-to-back Super Bowls, and now are on the verge of winning 3 straight. But the 49ers kind of find themselves in that situation, mainly if Brandon Ayuk and this whole situation with Ayuk goes wrong for them. And by go wrong, I mean, he's obviously not on the team, and they have to figure out kind of who steps up in that role. And their offense might look different. Brock Purdy might look a little bit, I don't want to say, disappointing, because I do believe Brock is a good quarterback, but he might just look a little disoriented or a little discombobulated if his main guy, Brandon Ayuk, isn't there. He might have to find another reliable weapon outside of Debo and George Kittle. Maybe Ricky Pierce will step up. Juwan Jennings, impressed a lot of people last year. So if they could find another guy like that, if Brandon Ayuk moves on, that would be huge for them. But I think this is a season where they are so focused on winning the Super Bowl, and they've done it in such dominating fashion that if they're not doing that leading up to the Super Bowl, then people start questioning, is this Super Bowl window over? Is Brock really the guy? Is this offense, as dominant as it once was? Everybody starts calling for Kyle Shanahan's name if they're not, I believe, dominating. If they're in a lot of close games, or if their record isn't 12-5 or something like that, or 13-4, teams, or I should say people in the media or just fans in general, start to point those things out, and it could create a lot of unnecessary pressure for this team that they definitely don't need, because they're already only focused on winning the Super Bowl, and if they don't do that, it's looked at as a failure. So these other, situations that could start to pile up could be some distractions that this 49ers team just doesn't need at this point in their, dynasty run, if you even want to call it that. So can they continue to dominate teams if Brandon Ayuk goes away? Because then you shut up a lot of people. Then you quiet down a lot of the haters and show that we're not so dependent on one player. We're still the 49ers. And that, I think, is going to be huge for them because of their lofty goals that they have going forward in 2024. But that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all the questions that I have for these teams in the NFC West. Let me know what you guys think of those questions and my responses to them. Leave it in the live comment section, obviously, with the super chat button, or also in the comments after this video has finalized. And along that note, that wraps it up for today's show. I want to thank you guys for joining me on today's episode of the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast. Please remember to like, follow, and subscribe to the show, as well as following the network on all forms of social media. If you want to see more of this show, check out both YouTube channels as well to see all the live shows, individual segment videos, or YouTube shorts around NFL content. And also, lastly, tune in every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time for more NFL storylines and all the latest topics around the league with me, Manny Maradiaga, as your host. Thanking you for joining me, and I hope to see you guys back here with me again tomorrow.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to